Okay, so welcome to today's informational webinar on the California Farm to School Incubator Grant Program. This is part of our weekly webinar series for the CDFA Farm to School Incubator Grant. You can see that we're just about 1 month out from the application due date. So every week we have these opportunities for you to check out the webinar, hopefully fill out your grant application, and then when you get stuck, come here with your questions. That's the goal of it. So we hope that you're in the online application already, that you're checking things out, that you're filling out question and answer, and then when you get stuck, you come here or you email us. So that's the whole point of these sessions, is to answer your questions and give an overview. So thank you all for joining today. All right, next slide, Amy.
I have to do this webinar for a grant.
Okay, and also if you're on the call today, try to mute or reduce sound if you're able to, so we can all hear. Okay, so CDFA's culture of support and collaboration. So this is CDFA's process, and why we're starting here is so that you feel comfortable asking us questions and collaborating. We have a culture of support and collaboration. So as we were developing the grant program, we were asking ourselves, how can we simplify this? How can we help people? How can we celebrate and validate the work that you're already doing while also supporting you and incentivizing you to expand your work and your impact? And then how can we create a lasting impact with the grant funds? At the state, we have a responsibility. This is taxpayer money. We want to make sure that it is being invested in a way that is actually making a lasting impact. We've seen some, small grants that go out and the programs get funded and then they fall off as soon as the funding falls off. So we want to make sure that our work is institutionalized and impactful. We have guiding practices to support our work. We offer support and technical assistance. It's webinars like this. It's our community of practice with the Farm to School Network. It's our office hours and peer-to-peer learning sessions where people are able to connect. You can just see in the chat here, we have people from all across the state. Everyone on here is doing Farm to School. I'm sure there's some great collaborations to be had. So that's why we have our office hours sessions, our peer-to-peer learning, and our community practice calls. On those calls like this one, we do cross-pollination and connect programs from across the state. So we have all of these systems in place so that you know that you're not alone, so that you have a place to go with your questions, and that you have similar or desired expertise, available to you. Okay, next slide. Here are the purpose and priorities of the grant program. So we're starting with why. We always say start with why. This explains it to people. This gets people on board. So this is why the grant program exists. The grant program exists to award competitive grants to support projects that cultivate equity, nurture students, build climate resilience, and create scalable and sustainable change. And we have these funding priorities that I'm going to go through here. These are across every single grant track. So no matter where you're applying, we want you to take note of these priorities and make sure that you are responding to them in the application. So the priorities for these grants are to engage students from underserved communities, to serve schools located among priority populations that are especially vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, to include small to mid-sized California food producers, to include veteran California food producers, socially disadvantaged California food producers, and/or limited resource farm households in California, and to include California food producers who utilize climate-smart agriculture practices, including climate-smart ag production systems, like certified organic or transitioning to certified organic, or other regenerative strategies that increase resilience to climate change, improve the health of communities and soil, protect water and air quality, increase biodiversity, and help store carbon in the soil. So if you look at this and want to put it into buckets, it's who are you working with? Are you working with the students in greatest need? Are you supporting the communities with greatest need? And are you helping create a healthy, equitable, and resilient food system? So as you're reflecting and as you're developing your project and communicating that in the application, make sure that you are looking at these funding priorities and connecting your project to these priorities. Okay, next slide, please. There are 4 funding tracks, like I mentioned earlier. There's track 1, the Farm to School K through 12 Procurement and Education Grant. There's track 2, the Farm to School Partnership Grant. Track 3, the Farm to Early Care and Education Grant. And track 4, the Farm to School Producer Grant. Yes, you can apply to multiple funding tracks, and yes, you can apply if you have an existing grant with CDFA to support your farm to school work. I'm sure we'll get into that in the Q&A. But remember, the funding priorities go across all 4 of these tracks. Sometimes we get questions, why are there 4 tracks? Why is this so big? I thought you wanted to keep things simple. Well, we wanted to make sure everyone saw themselves in this application. If you're a farmer, you have a farming track. If you're an aggregator, you have this partnerships track. If you're an ECE site, you have a specific way for you to apply. And if you're in the K-12 procurement and education space, you see yourself in this application. So that's why we broke it out that way. Also to fund the entire school food system. We're funding demand and supply, and we're scaling. So it's a really powerful opportunity for us to fund in this way. All right, next slide, please. Okay, what to expect in this informational webinar. First, we're offering a brief overview of each funding track. Then we're doing the program timeline and then a Q&A. So I'm gonna have like 1 or 2 slides on each track, then the timeline, then the Q&A. All right, next slide. So here's the first funding track, the Farm to School K-12 Procurement and Education Grant. This track will fund individual public school districts, county offices of education, and direct funded charter schools in California to establish new or expand existing farm to school programs. Those farm to school programs need to coordinate school nutrition services with educational opportunities for students in cafeterias, classrooms, and outdoor learning spaces like gardens and farms. And they need to procure California grown or produced whole or minimally processed foods for incorporation into school meals, especially foods that are culturally relevant, climate smart, and from small to mid-sized food producers, veteran food producers, socially disadvantaged food producers, and or limited resource farm households in California. So every track 1 application is going to come from a school district, county office of ed, or charter school. And every one of those applications is going to connect cafeteria and classroom and outdoor learning, and it's going to procure California grown foods. You will get extra points, as you see in the scorecard, if you're also doing culturally relevant foods and intentional values-based procurement, where you're procuring from small farms, mid-sized farms, or that list of priority farms that we have. So all of that information is there. Each track 1 application will do both of those things. If people want to, they can employ staff with this grant program, and you can use grant funds for staffing or other farm to school professional development for staff to provide training. Track 1 is unique in that there's a funding formula for it. And we created a funding formula because there's so much diversity across school districts. So the funding formula is you take your enrollment and it's $10 per student enrolled. The maximum award is $1 million. And if you are under 150K, so if you have a small school district and your funding formula comes out to under 150, you may apply for up to 150 if you want to. So I kind of think of it as a bracket of 150K to 1 million. And then if you wanted to do less, you could if you really wanted to. I don't know why you would, but you could. Okay, next slide. Here is the scorecard for track 1. It will look familiar to you as we go through some of these other tracks as well. You can see that the highest funded category or the highest scoring category is community need. So we want to make sure that these projects engage students from underserved communities and serve schools located among priority populations across the state. So as you're applying and putting the information in for your school district, county office of ed, or direct funded charter school, you'll be giving us some data on your school community and your more broader community. Then there's also a section for you to make the case. So you tell us what's your community experiencing as well. Tell the story of those numbers, because we know that the numbers don't tell the whole story. So there's 40 points for community need. Then the next biggest number there is project description, so 25 points. Tell us how your project is aligning with these program goals, requirements, and priorities. Then there's 20 points for healthy, equitable, resilient food system. So how will your grant project in track 1 create a more healthy, equitable, and resilient food system? Are you going to partner with small to mid-sized farmers? Are you going to partner with these priority groups of farmers, veterans, socially disadvantaged, or limited resource? And are you going to include partners who utilize climate smart ag? So we're looking at who are you serving in your community? Who are you partnering with? And how are you bringing those things together? The last category on there is project viability. It's a 10-point sustainability plan and budget plan. Okay, next slide. Track 2 is the second track, of course. That's why it's track 2. The Farm to School Partnerships Grant. This is for regional and statewide farm to school partnerships in California to establish new or expand existing farm to school initiatives. So this is our collaboration track, for the hubs, for our farm to school hubs and collaboratives and aggregators and people who are working, not just with one individual site, but with more than one partner. And for track 2, there's options for you to apply. So you can apply to implement farm to school procurement and or education strategies as part of a larger regional or statewide food system development plan. So if you have a county level food system plan or a regional food system plan, and farm to school is one element of that, you can apply in track 2 to implement that, because we know that that's going to affect the entire region. It's not just one district, it's the whole region. Second, you can apply to increase collaboration and coordination regionally or statewide between California food producers and school nutrition services departments. You'd be doing that to increase procurement of California grown or produced whole or minimally processed foods for incorporation into school meals, especially foods that are culturally relevant, climate smart from small to mid-sized food producers in that priority list. So this is like if you're a food hub, I know we have a food hub on the call, or if you are a collaborative or a co-op, right? Track 2 is meant here for you to increase that collaboration coordination between multiple schools and multiple farms. Okay, and then the last option on here for track 2, provide farm to school procurement and or educational technical assistance or capacity building support regionally or statewide to more than one farm to school implementing organization. So this is if you are a support organization, you have a network of schools or farms across the state, and you're going to help people get into the school food market or improve their work in the school food market. So there's a number of organizations like that work across it. One that was funded last year is called Eat Real Certified. So they applied with, I think, 3 school districts that they work with closely to improve school food. And they applied regionally. So there you go. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, sorry. The last thing to cover track 2, the award amounts are $100,000 to $500,000. So you get to decide how much you need for your project. Do you need 100? Do you need 500? Up to you. And Adele, I saw your hand. We're going to do questions at the end.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, next slide. Here is the scoring for track 2. This is what I mean about it should look familiar. Same as track 1. There you go. Community need, healthy, equitable, resilient food system, project description, description of history and motivation, your project partners, and project viability. It's all the same scoring categories on there. So, make sure that in your application, as you go through it, that you are aligning and reviewing the scorecard as you go. It's all public. You can see what's going to get the highest score. So there you go. All right, next slide. Track 3, our Farm to Early Care and Education grant. This is a new grant track compared to last year. This is one of the new ones that we developed. Track 3 will fund child care centers in California and farm to early care and education support organizations to establish new or expand existing farm to ECE programs that do all 3 of these things. So every application in track 3 for ECE is going to come from a child care center or a farm to ECE support org, and it's going to do all 3 of these things. It's going to coordinate food and garden-based hands-on learning and play opportunities for young kids, and if you want to, their families. It's going to also include procuring California grown or produced whole or minimally processed foods for incorporation into school meals, snacks, taste tests, and or food boxes for young kids, especially foods that are culturally relevant, climate smart, and from those priority groups of producers. And it's going to offer farm to ECE technical assistance and or peer learning to ECE staff, teachers, and families. If you want to, these projects can also employ farm to ECE staff. So it's very similar to the K-12 grant on procurement and education, but it's just for this separate audience. The award amounts for track 3 are $50,000 to $200,000. And again, you tell us what you need. We encourage projects in track 3 to incorporate family and parent engagement and to build connections with K-12 and CACFP programs. We know that there's a lot of overlap between these spaces, K-12 and ECE. So we encourage those connections. You can apply in both tracks if it makes sense for you. Okay, next slide. Here is the scoring point total. Again, it's the same. Community need is most important. Next is your project description and how it aligns with the goals and priorities of the project. And then healthy, equitable, resilient system. How does your project help create a more healthy and equitable and resilient food system? John, I see your question in the chat. I will answer that one first when we get to Q&A. Okay, next slide, please. Track 4 is the last grant. This is the producer grant. Track 4 will fund California food producers to increase production, processing, and or distribution of whole or minimally processed foods for the school food market. Track 4 will also fund California food producers to provide hands-on educational opportunities for youth that complement their food sales or donation to schools. To be eligible, a producer must show evidence of an established relationship with at least one school nutrition services department. The award amounts for this producer track are $5,000 to $150,000, and the producer that is applying, they just tell us how much they need. Okay, next slide. And here is the scoring for track 4 applications. This one is different. So you can see the point totals start with relationships with school nutrition services department. So does this person know your name? Do you actually know this school district, right? This is the opportunity here for you to explain that relationship and that history of collaboration together. This is in there because we want to make sure that our grants create lasting change. And if there isn't a relationship already in place, it will be really hard to ensure that these tax dollars that we are reinvesting through the grants are going to make that change. If you don't already have a relationship with the school nutrition services department, just reach out to our staff and we will help you build a relationship with schools at no cost, with no competition. You just email us and we'll help you. Or if you work with a lot of farms and you're on this call today, we can help them build relationships with school nutrition services departments. You don't have to apply for that. You just ask and we'll do it. So in the application, 5 points for your relationship with school nutrition services department, 2 points for description of food production history and your farm to school vision, 15 points for your project description, and then 25 points for healthy, equitable, resilient food system. So are you engaging students from underserved communities? Are you serving schools in priority areas? And then who are you? Are you a small to mid-sized food producer? Are you veteran, socially disadvantaged, or limited resource farm household? Do you utilize climate smart ag practices or systems? Then there's 8 points for project viability. That's your budget and sustainability. All right, next slide, please. Here is the timeline. So that's all 4 tracks, and then we have a lot of time here for questions. The timeline for what's coming up, the application period opened on May 9th. Now we're using WiseHive as our application portal online. If you have questions about how to use WiseHive, you can email us, and Amy on our farm to school team also did a video on how to use it. So, if you have questions, reach out. We're doing the weekly webinars now, and then applications are due by 5 p.m. Pacific time on July 6th. That's when everything is submitted. From July to August, we'll do the review process. It's a 2-part review. First, our CDFA staff reads each application and goes, did they fill this out all the way? Do we have all the information we need to score this? So yes or no. Then it goes to external reviewers. So we're gathering a team of farm to school experts from across the nation who will then be trained on our scoring rubric, and they will score each application. In September, we will notify the grantees of who has been selected. And then from September to December, we'll establish grant agreements with you. There will be a packet, you'll say, I agree to do this. CDFA will fund this, has all the outlines and resources for you. December 1st is our estimated start date for these projects. So if you wanted to, you could start December 1st. And then the absolute end date for when any of this project stuff will have to end is November 30th, 2024. So as you're going through your project description and you're sharing, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. This is phase 1, this is phase 2. Everything has to end by November 30th, 2024. Okay, next slide, please. Here's how CDFA can help you during the application period. We can answer informational questions about the grant via email and on webinars. So we have a Q&A coming up, and then we have email. We can introduce producers and school support organizations so we can help you build those relationships. And we can provide technical support on stuff related to Wise Hive. So I talked about that already. How we can't help, we can't provide specific feedback on grant project ideas. We don't want to give everyone a competitive advantage, and we also don't want to steer people in the wrong direction. So if you ask us specific questions, what we normally do is point you back to the scorecard and say, look at the scorecard and see what you think will be best. We also cannot assist with writing your grant application. So unfortunately, we're not able to support you in that way. Okay, next slide. So questions, we're going to get into questions now. There's a couple here in the chat that I'll do. And then what you can do is just go to the reactions button on the bottom of your screen. If you go to reactions and then raise hand, I'll call on you that way. Okay, so I'm going to hammer these quick ones in the chat, and then Vanessa, I see your hand is up, and others. And we're going to stay on until all questions are answered. Okay, so the first question in the chat is from John. In track 3, is the award amount per agency project, or can there be a separate award amount per each ECE center within the organization? There will be one total award amount for the application. So you'll apply for whatever the number is. And then in the budget, you can dictate out how much is going to go to each organization. Does that make sense, John, or do you need any additional clarification there?
No, that makes sense, Nick.
Okay.
So the cumulative amount would be the maximum amount of the award.
Yeah.
And then you can divide it up by early childhood site within that organization.
Correct. That's right. And Amy, are there any specific rules that they would need to follow in that budgeting or contracting, or do they just dictate it in the budget template?
Yeah, hi, John. Great question. So there's two options. One is to divvy up funds via contractual costs. So in all 4 funding tracks, including track 3, contractual costs are allowable. And in the request for applications under the allowable and unallowable costs section, contractual costs, we've linked to the regulations for organizations to follow regarding contracting. So you don't have to tell us your process for how you choose your contractors in the application, but we link to those regulations so you know what to follow. And then another option that's also allowable in all 4 funding tracks is mini grants. So mini grants that you would like to distribute through your project. So you can check out the allowable and unallowable cost section of the RFA for details on those 2 different types of ways to disperse funds kind of from the larger organization that's the grant recipient to smaller organizations or centers.
Yes,
thank you. Okay, and then there's similar questions in the chat too, Amy. So Nicole is also seeking insights on if the award amounts could be broken up per county for a regional approach. Would that be okay?
Yeah, hi, Nicole. Nice to see you on. That's a great question. So the answer is yes. Particularly in tracks 2 and 3, we encourage collaboration. And so for track 3, the ECE track, say you're a farm to ECE support organization and you serve childcare centers, family childcare homes, family friend and neighbor settings throughout your county or region. You can totally include, as far as you'd like to go, you can include the childcare centers and other entities that you serve in your project.
Perfect. Thank you. That helps me so much as I work with our regional partners and look at the superior map. So I appreciate that very much.
Cool. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you. Okay. And then the last one, Amy, I send all the ECE questions to Amy. If you guys haven't noticed that. Okay. Danielle is the next question in the chat. For track 3, can multiple centers group together to collaborate, to work together? Does that still stay in track 3?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. And part of the RFA and the review criteria for track 3 states that the CDFA will prioritize projects that have a relative relatively larger project reach in relation to the other applications that we receive. And for track 3, we're just finding project reach by the number of ECE students served and the number of ECE providers reached. And we won't be comparing from the ECE support org applications with childcare center applications, because we understand that the reach will be different. We'll be comparing, the reach of Farm to ECE organization applications to each other, and then childcare center applications to each other in terms of project reach. And if you're a center applying, there is a spot in the application where you can tell us if you will be serving other partner centers outside of your own organization through track 3. And I can find the specific question. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I can put that in the chat for you.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. And then I have just these ones from Caroline, and then I'm going to go to our hands up because I saw these questions before the hand. Okay. Can you share the PowerPoint with participants? Yes, we can share the PowerPoint, and it's on our grant website as well. So if you go to our grant website, which is here, you can see it on the PowerPoint. It has a tab for webinars and recordings, and the slides are listed there. So you can check it out. And then, is this a renewable funding program? So we have funding for this year and next year for the grant program, and you can apply again. There's no guarantee that you would get it in your second round of applications, but right now we have funding for this year and next. Okay. The last one I had DM to me, and then we're going to go to the hands, Vanessa, is from Amy Sennett. Track 1, does food procured for school meals need to be new? Again, like it was before. So last year we required that if you were going to use funding for new, you had to use funding for new California grown foods. So like, let's say you were already getting California grown peaches, you weren't going to be able to, use grant funds to purchase more California grown peaches. This year, it does not have to be new like before. The reason why we're doing that is because, well, the answer is no, it doesn't have to be new. So I can pause there. The reason is that, farmers, if you have an orchard, those trees are in the ground. It's not like they're going to have new trees next year. So, that's why we want you to establish these relationships and institutionalize this type of local procurement. So it doesn't have to be new. All right, now we're going to the hands, and then I'll go back to the chat after that. And then if you don't feel comfortable talking out loud, you can email us too. Okay, so Vanessa, sorry for the extended drum roll for you on waiting for your turn.
No worries. You have sort of, this type of question has been alluded to earlier in the chat. So, but just to be crystal clear, I'm working with a group of people who are applying for a track 2 grant. We have obviously the lead organization, and the decision by the group was to distribute mini grants, that the lead would do that. So we have those mini grants detailed out in category 6. Now, do you want in the explanation area, like a significant amount of justification for how every single grant partner is going to be spending that money? Because we have a lot of them. And the whole point was, we're just going to give you the money to develop what's specific to your organization and farm to school mission. We don't want the detail of it, but do you want the detail of it?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I come from nonprofit, and I feel the same way as you, of like, what is the, least amount of reporting burden that someone will have to deal with? So Amy knows more about the specifics on that and might be able to drop a link in the chat that outlines what the specific reporting process would be for a mini grant recipient. Amy, are you able to share that, or can you describe it, or is it better just to send it in writing?
But it's also, that's a good,
Yeah.
that would be good information, but that's not necessarily the question. So for the application itself in the budget narrative, do you want mini grant recipients to be like, we're going to buy 1 nutrition cart, and we're going to buy 1 Vitamix, and we're going to spend X number of dollars on shovels? Or can we just explain the concept of the mini grant? And then I have another question. Whereas all the other detail about that kind of stuff, that's the lead organization is going to provide all of that information, correct? Like under spending category 3, if they want to pay for staff wages, if they want to buy local food or other equipment, all the other categories is where they, as the lead, input that information. Is this correct?
Yeah, Amy, what do you think? You're more familiar with that template without me looking at it.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi,
Um,
how are you?
So yeah, this is a great question. I think the main thing to keep in mind is that we have to be able to assess whether or not any costs that you outline in your budget worksheet are allowable according to the allowable and unallowable costs in the RFA. And that includes for mini grant recipients and contractors that you're proposing in their budget, since they have to follow all of the same allowable and unallowable cost parameters as grant recipients do. We have to be able to kind of make a determination of if the way the mini grant recipients and contractors are going to be spending the funds fits into the same guidelines that the grant recipient would also have to follow. So I think it's similar to the guidance for the rest of the budget, like when you're filling out the materials and supplies section for the applicant organization itself. We don't need to know, like, you know, every shovel that you're buying or like every type of seed packet or things like that and how much like each one will cost. But we would like to know, you know, say you are saying that you're going to buy school garden supplies, and then you maybe like you list out like the types of school garden supplies you're going to be buying, and then in a bulk amount you kind of estimate how much of that is going to cost in the line item section. And then in the justification reasoning section, you would kind of explain, you know, what those school garden supplies are going to be used for and how it relates back to your goals for the project. So I think I would use that same kind of guiding framework for when you're outlining the mini grant recipients and contractors funds that you're proposing. Is it doesn't have to be every little detail, but it has to be enough for us to be able to see if the costs are allowable and if they align with the goal of the project. Does that help? Or did that make it more confusing?
No, I mean, it helps. I think what I'm going to go with, and is just sort of a general, these funds will go towards these types of efforts. And, you know, they will follow all of the allowable costs and guidelines set forth by CDFA.
There you go. I'm in. Sounds good to me. Sounds right. Because honestly, like as detailed as those budgets get, like, you know, the price of a shovel changes.
Right.
So, you know, that's not helpful for anyone to put in that level of detail. Like Amy said, those broader categories with the justification is really, you know, all we'll need. So
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, JC, I see you next.
Good afternoon. It is now noon.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jackie Westbrook with the Center for Healthy Communities at Chico State. And I'm hoping that I'm asking a logistics technical assistance question and not what would be construed as like help with the application. But our question has to do with, as a farm for track 3, as a farm to ECE support organization, when we answer the question regarding 1A, because we're providing support to the ECE site that's on our campuses, I'm assuming that we're answering those questions for 1B, C, and D as the site.
Amy, what do you think?
Because obviously, as a non-auxiliary, like we don't have the license, but the site that we're providing support to it does qualify and has the license. So it's a logistical question of like, how do we explain? I mean, we're going to explain that in the narrative piece, but in the other questions. But like for that particular question, we're not sure how you want us to proceed. Yeah,
Amy, what do you think?
Sure. Hi, JC. That's a great question. So for track 3, in order to apply as a childcare center, there's a few parameters that the childcare center has to meet to be eligible. So one is providing care all or part of the day. Another is primarily serving young children birth through age 5. Another is being licensed through the Department of Social Services or otherwise meeting criteria for a license exemption. So if you as the organization that is applying is not the one that's like the licensed center, and you're rather an organization that meets any of the Farm to ECE support org criteria, and I believe institutions of higher education are on there, then you would apply as a Farm to ECE support org. If it was the center applying like themselves as the licensed center or the center that meets criteria for a license exemption, then you would be applying as a childcare center. But then the thing to keep in mind for track 3 is that, as we mentioned earlier, the CDFA is going to be prioritizing projects that have a relatively larger project reach in relation to the other applications we receive. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you're a Farm to ECE support org that is supporting one center, that project reach is going to be, it's not a scored factor, it's just kind of something in more of a comprehensive overview of the applications that we're keeping in mind to try to ensure that as many, birth through 5-year-olds in California as possible can benefit from this cycle of funding.
Okay, so the follow-up question to that is, and maybe I haven't got far enough in the Hive application, but if we enter that we're the farm to school support and it asks us, is it going to ask us those other questions? Because if we respond no, then it doesn't appear that we're eligible.
That's a good question. So let's see, what should happen when you're filling out track 3 in Wise Hive is the first question it's asking, are you any of the following? And it has that list. And if you check a Farm to ECE support org, B and C should not show up, is how we intended it. And so if you answer Farm to ECE support org to 1A in the track 3 app, then it should take you straight to 1D. Okay. But if that's not happening, please let us know, because that means there's a glitch and we can try to fix it.
Okay, I will find out for sure. I'm not sure we got far enough because we were thinking that we didn't know the answer to that logistical question. So appreciate the help, and hopefully that helps anybody else too.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next on the list is Forrest. Forrest, can you hear us? We can't hear you. If you're calling in, you might have to do *6, or you might not be connected to your audio. We're going to circle. I'll give you one more second and we'll circle back to you. Okay, Forrest, we're going to come back to you. If you're not able to figure it out, just put it in the chat and we can go that way. Okay, Carlisle, hi, you're next.
Hi, thanks so much. My question is a little bit of a nitty-gritty question on how to enter a budget line for the track 2. Mm-hmm. And we have a project partner that's going to be a large portion of the budget that will be entering as a contractor cost. Yeah. And there are several staff people that within that organization that we're partnering with that we would like to fund their salaries. Excuse me. And so I'm wondering, in terms of how we enter that, should I enter one line for each staff person and a separate line for each of their fringe benefits, and then a separate line for the travel associated? Or, excuse me, is it just one line per contractor that we're working with?
Good question. Amy, do you know in the budget template what the preference is?
Hi, Carlisle. That's a really great question. So in the budget for contractors, when you're doing staff salaries and fringe of the contractor, I would recommend adding as many rows as you need in that budget worksheet under the contractor category, and aligning it to how we've outlined the line items if you're applying to fund your own staff. So there's kind of, I forget if it's above or below. I think it's above in the worksheet, where if you're applying to fund your own staff, then it kind of tells you like what's their title and are they salaried or hourly or stipended and stuff like that. And then there's a separate kind of line where you would enter fringe. So I would like copy that same format and then just add it as many rows as you need as kind of like sub rows to your contractor to describe how those proposed costs are going to work for their staff.
Thank you. That's what I was figuring. I just wanted to make sure. And is it possible to add then more lines than are initially visible?
Totally. Yeah, please do. We just tried to put in an amount that we thought might work, but we know that some people won't use all the lines and some people need more, so you're totally welcome to add. Yeah.
Excellent. And can I ask one more question that's a little bit related? And that is that in terms of figuring our indirect expenses, I know with other government grants we've filled out, they allow for like these partnership contracts that we're doing, that we can figure in an indirect amount for the subcontract, and then use like an indirect modified total direct costs for the overall agreement. Do you all have a preference to that, to just put all the indirect costs to the main organization that's applying, and then we can, how do you recommend budgeting that in?
Well, Nick, I don't know if you know the answer to that one, but you've stumped me with that one. So
email us that one, and we'll get back to you on it to see how the formula can work out.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next in line is Greg Ellis. Hi, Greg.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my questions. I have two questions. The first one is about track 4. So I'm working with a nonprofit, and we're applying with a school district for track 4. The school district owns the farmland, and we've been partnering on this project with them. They're paying some of the costs. We're writing grants for some of the costs. They're paying us to cover some of the costs, but we don't lease or rent the land that's farmed on. Is that an issue?
This is such a great question, and we've been working on this with, I think Curtis is on the call down in, oh gosh, I forget now. But we will send, we have a written response we'll send to you. And, if you have a written agreement with the school district, we have a series of questions for kind of you to answer on whose farm is it? Is it your farm or is it the school's farm? And then you'll get to decide which track you want to apply in. So you can apply in track 4 if you feel like it's your farm and if you're able to answer the questions, and you can apply as a partner in track 1 if the school district feels like it's their farm. Yeah, so we'll send you a written response. Amy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, and then also, Greg, for your question about if you have to have a lease or rental agreement or written agreement in place already, or if you can just have it in place by the time you submit your application, we'll also make sure to get back to you on that specific piece of the question in our email, and we'll post that in our Q&A for anyone else who's interested too.
Yeah, these are great questions, Greg, and we have your email from before, so it's like we're always trying to figure out, there's so many unique scenarios, especially on school farms. So hopefully it'll provide enough clarity for you.
So, so Amy and Nick, Curtis Gibbs from Cap Orange County. Thank you.
Hi. Yeah.
Thank you very much for sitting down with us to provide the guidance on that very question that the other person was just asking. So we appreciate the feedback and your understanding of an MOU being equivalent to a lease or rental agreement.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you so much for doing it. And like I say, that's why we do the Q&As and have this, because every situation is so unique. So, okay, Greg, do you have any other questions?
No.
I do have one more question.
Yeah, okay, great, yeah.
About, track 2. So it says that, track 2 is to implement a regional or statewide plan.
Yeah.
How formal does that plan need to be? We're one of the only, school garden support organizations in our region. And so we have internal plans, but they haven't really been formalized. And they also tie in with other larger nutrition goals, statewide farm to school goals, that kind of thing.
I think that's a great question. What we're really looking for in that is a regional plan or a community plan, something that's been collectively developed, where an entire region or a larger group of stakeholders came together to create this thing, to create collective impact. We say it similarly, like about our grant program, we could have just created it in one of our beige cubicles at the state, right? But instead we went out and engaged all these stakeholders to develop the plan. So if you have a plan that has been collectively developed and a lot of partners have been engaged in it, and it reflects the goals of track 2, and those types of stakeholders were engaged, and I think you could totally use that. Yeah, that's what I would say. Does that make sense?
Great. I think that answers my question.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you. Okay, Derek, Noah. Hi, Derek. We got you next.
Hi, everybody, and thank you. Can you see me and hear me okay?
Yeah, it's great.
All right. So my first question is, does the award preference for wider reach apply to track 4 also? I think you're talking about it for track 3, but
Yeah, for the scale.
would a wider reach?
No, it doesn't for track 4. That's a good question. It's more about community need and healthy, equitable, resilient food system in your project narrative. So that award, those ones are scaled. Amy, is that right?
Yeah, so in track 4, as long as you meet that minimum requirement to have a partnership with one of those eligible school-based entities that it lists in the RFA, then that meets the eligibility requirement. And if you have that letter of intent from the school nutrition services director, you don't need to try to scale in track 4 to have a competitive application.
Yeah, what we've learned a lot is it's easier to sell to a small school. It's tough to get into LA Unified. They're feeding 600,000 kids a day, so one farm can't really do that. So we're definitely okay with it as long as you have a school that is working with you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, and my other question has to do with insurance. So my plan is to put a greenhouse at the school, and I'm wondering if for insurance purposes, would a general liability insurance cover an accident in the greenhouse, or would the school's insurance cover that? This is just one of those questions I haven't had time to thresh out with the school.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really depends on each policy, honestly, and what they have covered in it. So I would reach out to the school and ask them if there was a greenhouse and something happened, how would that go down? I would also ask about vandalism as someone who had a greenhouse at a school district and the irrigation kept getting cut.
Okay.
So I would ask about those two things and see what they say.
Right on.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I got. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, Forrest, you're back. We see you.
Excited.
All right. Yeah, we got
you.
You.
Me now?
Yeah.
Awesome. Killer. So I'm with a nonprofit, and we would be on track 2 if we applied. And we have 10 learning centers that are after school and summer program throughout Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo County. And I am looking at the proposal here, the description of track 2 on page 8, under the description of the 4 funding tracks. Number 1 says, implement a farm to school procurement and/or educational strategies as a larger regional or statewide food system development plan in California. I was wondering if we only provided services at our learning centers, is that an option that would be eligible for funding through the grant?
It's a great question. I'm not exactly sure. Amy, what do you think? We might need more info. Amy, do you think we need more info? Or what do you think?
Yeah, hi Forrest, nice to see you on again. That's a great question. I think we might need a little more context if you're able to email it to us. But one thing that we can highlight is for track 2, it's important that your project partnership is with a farm to school implementing organization. So at least one public school district, county office of education, and or directly funded charter school. So
so we could have one partnership. I don't think that we could do more than one school district partnership.
Okay, so so that's wonderful. And the other thing you would have to keep in mind is that track 2 partnerships must focus on that regional statewide food system impact that meaningfully supports more than one farm to school implementing organization. So even if one school district is like your formal project partner, that meets the eligibility requirements for track 2, but you would need to demonstrate in your application, particularly in the project description section, how your project is going to be meaningfully supporting more than one public school district, county office of ed, or directly funded charter school. Otherwise, if it's just impacting one individual school district, then it's more of a track 1 application where the school district itself is applying and they can contract with you as a contractor partner org.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically our own learning centers would not, we would, even though we have learning centers throughout the 2 counties, we would need to partner with, or we would need to have an impact on more than one school district still.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Yep. Okay, and then Adele, we're back. Adele, you still have your question?
I have many, many questions.
That's good. We saved you till the end here.
Well, I'm starting from scratch, so I've never even done this before. I'm back in the beginning of how do you open the box and get to the applications, and it looks like I have to register with grants.gov first.
Just WiseHive for ours. So there's a USDA farm to school grant where you have to do grants.gov.
Yeah, I'm just lost. I need to, I got to figure out where to go to register to even see the application. So that's what I need help with. I've been going around in circles here.
Oh, well, we'll send you a link. We'll put it in the chat right now.
And you do that because the links that
team.
Michael sent me, I open it up and then there, it shows what county schools get grants because this is track 2 funding. So it listed all that. So that's great, but that's not where I need to go. And then there was another link that took me to the government site to register there. And I think I know how to do a username and password with asterisks or not. And I wasn't even getting anywhere on that.
Well, don't worry about that. Let all that go. Ours is way easier than that. We'll send you the link right now.
Get me to the honey hole.
The WiseHive application for track 2.
Okay, let me write this down. Oh, you're going to send it
to you.
Okay.
And then you'll create an account in WiseHive, and then it just has all the questions for you.
And then from there, I can pull the track 2 application.
That is it.
Oh, that is it. Okay.
Yeah,
thank
you fill it out online.
Okay.
And so it asks what type of organization are you? You fill out your eligibility and it says, yes, you're eligible. And
okay.
Says, how much money do you want?
Yep.
You put that in. And then it's just Q&A.
It'll walk me through it. Yeah.
It'll walk you through it. And then you have to upload a budget template, or you have to upload a budget, you have to upload this type of thing. And that's all on our grant website.
So those forms are there. I would just fill it out, save, and then upload it completed. Okay.
That's exactly right. And Amy, do you also want to send the WiseHive video over too?
You send me anything you want to because
it's all posted right in the chat, and then I'll send that right now as an email over to you right now.
Great. Thank you. So I mean, I've made some headway, which is good. It's just a matter of putting it all together. So my question, I know Michael's been a great help with this too, is the track 2. I can list multiple school districts, or okay, I could list multiple. I could have more of a primary if I choose to go that direction, and then there I would spell out what we would like to do. And then if we do want to do a CSA box, which I'd really love to get going, write that in as well, like in addition to, okay. Because I do already have the Santa Cruz School District and the Monterey School District writing letters. So they're on board. They're super excited. So yeah, I think we've kind of hit, a point where I can participate more. And then maybe on their track 1, is that where they would put Coke Farm down as well?
Yeah, they could put you as a procurement partner.
Mingling. All right.
Yeah, they could put you as a procurement partner. So where they would say, we're asking about healthy, equitable, resilient. And are they procuring from small and mid-sized farms and socially disadvantaged farms? They'd say, yep, Coke Farms is who we're buying from, and this is our plan to expand it. So they would put that in their track 1 app. And then in your track 2 app, you would say, here's the schools that we're going to be partnering with. You will be asked to submit some data about those schools. So you can either ask them those questions or just get them on the phone and fill it out together, however you want to do it. And then you'll fill out, your project plan and budget and all of that.
Perfect. So yeah, I have meetings moving forward, one starting tomorrow. So I'll go ahead and look for this email right now and try to get that application going. Cool.
You're going to love it. It's going to be so easy. No grant.
I hope so, because I was like, wow.
All grants
How do we
take
get this money?
Oh my God, well, all grants take time and they're all hard, and just keep emailing your questions.
Well, I think next, the following year, as these are, you have templates already made. It's easy to go back and look at it. But I mean, we've been trying to work with schools for years, so we're trying to do our part as well. And, us being who we are, we're a perfect farm to do this because we have 100 growers that are under our name, small family farms. It's ideal for them. And it's ideal for the schools as well. And then, you try to, those distributors, you try to just kind of close that gap and do the direct. It's just going to, the funding's going to go where it needs to go.
That's right. That's right.
Put it that way.
So we love it. So keep emailing your questions if you have them. And right now for everyone, it's 12:28. I don't know how it happens that all these things tend to end on time. So we have one last question that came in the chat in a direct message. So we're going to answer that. But for anyone else who has to take off right on time, if you have additional questions, please email them to us. cafarmtoschool@cdfa.ca.gov. You can email us there. That goes to our entire team. And then, you'll get funneled to the right people and get all the info you need. So if you have to take off, thank you so much. And then we have our last question here is from John. And it's going to go to Amy because it's all about ECE. Amy, can you read the question and answer it?
Sure. Hi, John. So the question is, I'm also representing California Children's Academy, which has 13 ECE sites and serves about 700 children daily. I'm thinking since we're a single agency applying for our own multiple sites that we just reflect the amount of funding to be distributed per site. Yeah, that's a great question. So it sounds like you're a childcare center that would be applying to Track 3 as a multi-site childcare center. So in your application, in the project description, and in the budget narrative worksheet, you would just tell us how you want to break down the funds that you're applying for. So say you're applying for a grant award of 50,000 or of 200,000 or anywhere within that range, then in the budget worksheet, you would tell us how you want to break it down among your different sites or among the different types of allowable costs. And then also kind of describe that in your project description as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, everyone, for submitting questions. We have another webinar next week for Q&A. I wish I had that date up so that I could tell it to you. We'll have someone put it in the chat and then I'll read it out loud for the recording. But thank you, everyone, for joining. Like I said, we want to have a culture of collaboration and support and assistance. So reach out with your questions and let us know if you need any support. You can see that the next webinar is June 14th at 10 a.m. So know the deadline is July 6th for the application. Get all your questions in now. Start going into Wise Hive. Get your specific questions ready for us. We're so happy to help you along this process. So thank you all for joining today. And we will hopefully see you next week. All right. Thanks all. Bye.